All right, we're about ready to get started with our painting. I'm just going to hold up the palette for just another moment, just to make sure everybody has those colors that we need for this beautiful painting of Bridal Veil Falls. I've got some blue, some red, some yellow, some white, some green, and a little bit of black. If you don't have green, no worries, we can make it. But you do need at least your basics, the yellow, red, blue, white, and black. Okay. So this is a really fun painting. I'm so glad you all have joined me for this one. And I think you might be surprised about how easy it is to do this painting. There's not a lot of real detailed brush strokes going on in here. So it is surprisingly easy to do this. So I think you're gonna love it. So that being said, are we ready to get started? Okay, let's get started then. And I always let people know ahead of time that I'm going to put everyone on mute throughout the class, but if at any point you have a question and you want to unmute yourself, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. You can hold up your canvas into the camera, or even you can take a picture of it and text it over to me. You can get in touch with me through Instagram, or if you have my number, just text it to my number. Okay, so let's get started with this crazy fun painting here. So we're going to be using these 3 brushes. We've got a large flat brush, a medium round brush, or something close to it, and just some kind of small detail brush. So a large flat, medium round, and a little detail. Now, if you don't have these exact brushes, don't worry about it. We can work with whatever you have. We could even work with fingers if you need to do finger paint and you have no brushes. I'll show you how to do it the whole painting with your fingers. Wouldn't that be kind of fun? No. Well, okay, so just let me know if you have any questions as we're going along. So we're going to get started by taking that large brush and just kind of set it in our water for a minute. Let it start soaking up some water. Actually, you can put all of your brushes in the water. Let them start soaking up their water. Okay. The first thing I want to do actually before doing anything else is I want to get the basic lines of these cliffs in the place. So we're going to do a little bit of drawing with our small paintbrush. Now, if it doesn't come out exactly the same shape as my cliffs, don't worry about it. It's still going to be beautiful. Just try to follow along as best you can. So I'm going to take out first my smallest brush, and I'm just going to start with some blue paint. Just plain blue paint with my small brush. Add a little bit of water to make it easy to draw with. Yes, you can draw with a paintbrush, and we're going to prove that right now. So just blue paint. And let's come on up to the top of our canvas. We're going to start right about here. So heading up towards the top, but not all the way up top, and starting on the left side of the canvas. Okay, so just going to start by getting a little line in there that kind of works its way down and stops before it gets to the center of the canvas and starts to drop. Okay, so see how it starts kind of close to the top, maybe just a couple of inches from the top of the canvas. And it's just kind of a little bit of a wobbly line. It's not a straight line. And before it gets halfway to the halfway across, it starts to drop. We've got a little bit of a drop happening before it meets the halfway point. So like this would be your halfway point. So it's before the halfway point, it starts to drop. I'm gonna fix my easel here. There we go. Okay, so now, that's a little better. So now we're going to continue on with that blue paint, and we're going to let it drop, 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 drop all the way to the bottom of the canvas. Just a line that just kind of drops down all the way to the bottom. So just kind of straight down cliff. Okay. Now once you've got this very basic shape, let's get a tiny bit of detail in here. So I'm just going to add a little kind of cliff edge here by going like that. It'll make more sense when we get some color in there. So it's just kind of another line comes in and drops down like that. So it's on the inside, just comes in and drops a little like that. And again, don't worry if it doesn't look exactly like this. It's gonna look wonderful. All right, so now we're gonna put where the water is. So let's come down a couple of inches from the top and just make ourselves a little line. For me, it's gonna be a couple of inches like that. So just a little line coming across for our water. And then let it drop the same way we did the other one. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. Just kind of let it fall. And we'll get a little more, we'll get more detail in the water later. Right now, we're just doing a very basic sketch to get us started. All right, let's keep going. We're gonna be doing this little rocky area next to the water, on the right side of the waterfall. And see how it kind of climbs up, and maybe it goes just a little bit higher right here. So let's start right after the water. I'm gonna get this little shape in here. It's kind of like rocks climbing up, almost like little steps. And then you've got this fun little dome going on right here. And it's a little bit of a triangle. Let's just do a little bit at a time here. Let me zoom in on this. Do a little bit at a time. Okay, so now we're going to take that and bring it across and let it get a little bit wobbly, like a cliff would be, as it kind of reaches back up on the right. Let it wobble a little bit there. Reaching back up on the right. Okay, excellent. You guys are almost done. This is the hardest part. Okay, so now let's get a little bit of a kind of a rock. The top of the rocks are going to be highlighted a little bit here. So let's get a little bit of a highlight, or I'm sorry, a little bit of a shape going on for the top. Almost like we've got a little cliff. You could walk along on the top, right about there. We got to give it a little three-dimensional look to it. Okay. So I am very impressed that everybody did this, because this was the hardest part of the painting. From here on in, it's smooth sailing. It's so easy. So let's start by getting sky in there first. We're going to get a beautiful sky in, and then we'll get the waterfall in. But let's start with the sky first. So go ahead and put that little brush in the water. And then we'll take out our medium-sized brush, medium round. And with this, we're just going to do a combination of blue and white. Blue and white to make a light sky blue. So a mixture of blue and white. To get a sky blue, you'll do a little bit more white than blue. You get a pretty sky blue in there. And just fill in the whole top part of the canvas with this pretty sky blue color. And try to leave your dark blue marks clearly marked, so you don't want to lose those. So I'm just filling in the sky with this blue color, with this light blue color. Now, if you find it easier to use your large brush on this area, go right ahead. You can switch over brushes at any time. I'm just using my my medium round for this, but you can do any size you want. And again, it's just to get a base color in the sky. Now, I am a huge fan of putting the clouds in the sky while the blue paint underneath is still wet. I think those makes for some really fun clouds. So that's what I'm going to do here. And I'm not even going to rinse off this brush. I'm going to leave it with a little bit of that light blue paint on there and just go right into my white paint and pick up some white paint on that same brush. So it has that kind of that base of the light blue, but then I picked up some white paint on it. And this is where we're going to get some fun clouds in there because the paint is still wet up here. So start anywhere you want, and just take that brush and start swirling it around as if you were scrubbing the floor with it. I'm doing little circular swirls and moving it in one direction, left or right, and then you can move it in another direction. So I'm using, if you want to watch my brush for a second, I'm just kind of pushing it in and then swirl, swirl, swirl. A little bit of a swirl, a little bit of a scrub, and see what it does? It makes these fun little clouds. But that is working because the blue paint is still wet underneath. So that's why we're going to do this kind of quickly. I'm going to do some more clouds. Anywhere you want, you can put clouds in there. Find a spot and then just plop your brush down and start swirling it around and moving it in a direction. You're going to get some awesome clouds. Here you go. I'll move that a little closer so you can see that right up close. Pick a spot. Oop. Start swirling the brush. Move in a direction. Jump up and down a little bit. Drag it out. And you'll get some awesome clouds. And let's put as many as you want in there. If anybody's having trouble with that cloud technique, just let me know. I'm happy to help you out with it. I just kind of put clouds in everywhere up here. And those clouds don't have to go across the sky. Some of them can go down. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is how my clouds are looking right about now. I love the look, Rylan. So all you just keep on blending them. You can have some areas of the clouds a little more highlighted than others with white. Go a little thicker with your white in some parts. I'll tell you what though, the clouds don't have to be a big important part of the painting though. These are just kind of a support. The waterfall is our real focal point in the painting. So the clouds are just a bit of a support. And if you want, you can come back in with your brush and just give a few little dots of highlights wherever you want on those clouds. And if you want to. You might not need it. Okay. These are very happy little clouds, and I think they're going to stay that way. So let's start thinking about getting the waterfall in there. So I'm just going to give this one more minute in the clouds. That way too, you don't overthink the clouds. Like I said, they're not the most important part of the painting. They're just a little support. So just give it another minute and then we're going to dive right into the waterfall. Okay, so into our waterfall we go. Continue using that same medium round brush. Let's go right back into our light blue paint. So the blue that we used in the sky, let's get a little bit more of that light blue. Let's just bring in some lines of this white blue that go down the waterfall. Now, when you're making these brush strokes, imagine what it would be like to fall down a waterfall. I say that because that's the kind of drop you want to have with this paint. You want to just kind of lay your hand drop straight down, get the paint on there, let it drop. And you can get a few brush strokes of a little bit of a darker blue in there too. But it's kind of fun doing that too. You just kind of get your hand on there, get the paint on, and just boom, let it drop. Just kind of filling it in with a mixture of the darker blue and the lighter blue. Take it all the way down. When you get down towards the bottom, you might have to fill it in just a little bit. So see how I've got some nice little streaks of a darker blue in there? Let's try to get a couple of streaks of darker blue along with your medium blue. So it's a little bit of darker blue, a little bit of medium blue. Okay. Now, for this next step, I'm going to share something that's really interesting with you about painting composition. Composition is the way that you structure your painting so that the eye is drawn to certain areas intentionally. Okay? So, something really interesting about this painting is that, of course, your eye is drawn here. This is the focal point in the painting. This is the most important spot. And the way that I did that was by creating a strong contrast between the lightest point in the painting and the darkest point in the painting. That is called contrast, and that is an important part of composition. In creating a really good composition, you can use something called contrast to create a good composition, and that's what we're going to do today. So I just thought I'd make you aware of that, that's part of this painting. So let's get the light part of our contrast in there right now. So just kind of dab your brush on your napkin and then go right into your white paint nice and thick like this. See, I'm going to just get a lot of white paint on there. Okay, this is where I'm going to create some real strong contrast. So the top of the waterfall, it's a little bit of heavy, heavy white paint in a couple of spots, maybe 3 different spots. We're at the top, and then let it drop the same way you did with the blue. So you go nice and heavy at the top, and then you just let it drop. So it's going to be brightest at the top. Your sharpest point of contrast is right at the top. And you'll see this will really stand out when we get our dark color next to it. So go ahead and let that white drag down in a few places in your waterfall. Okay, so this is what the waterfall looks like so far. We'll add a little bit more detail as we go along, but not much. The waterfall is actually not too difficult to do. How's everybody doing with these steps? Is everybody feeling confident? Good. Excellent. Okay. So now that we've created our lightest, brightest spot, we're going to create our contrast spot now where it gets super dark. And we're going to use our medium-sized brush for that. Medium size, so give it a really good rinse because there was white paint on there. So in order to get our darkest dark, we need it to be totally clean. And what I'm going to do is create some really dark purple by using my blue, a big, big scoop of blue, and a little bit of red. That's going to make a nice, deep, dark purple or indigo. So it was a big scoop of blue and a little scoop of red, and see how it made it like a super dark indigo color. I know it's probably hard to see here. There you go. Okay. Once you've got your indigo color, you might want to add a little bit of water to it just to make it a bit easier to get your lines in there. So I add a little bit of water to mine. And then I'm going to come in on the right side of the waterfall and make my deepest contrast against the white. I'm going to get this beautiful dark coming all the way down. Okay. So this is my deepest contrast color, this deep with indigo color. It's going to come right up next to the waterfall. come all the way down. And then I'm going to take it and bring it on over to the right and let it be part of, start making my cliffs with this. So just, I'm not going all the way down with this now. I'm just kind of sticking towards the top part, the upper part. I'm not doing my highlight, my little walkway on the top of the mountain just yet. This is just the top. And I'm just kind of bringing it down. So I start at the blue and just bring it down. So starting at the blue, just kind of bring it down. And I'm not going to come all the way down here, just towards the top. Get a little layer of it in there. What, baby? Now I am going to take this a little bit further down at the bottom and bring in some lines like this at the bottom, just kind of going up and down. I'm not filling in everywhere, just bringing in some lines down there. Start filling in some of that cliff face very lightly. Okay. Now, once you've got that on the right side, we're going to do a very similar thing on the left. You might have to make some more of your color. Okay. So coming on the left side, just going to get a little contrast line right next to the waterfall. So that can kind of come on down. And I think a little more detail at the top. Okay, so now I actually would like to make this a little bit higher. I didn't go quite high enough with this. So I'm going to kind of go a little, bring my line up just a little bit, make it a little rockier, and then have a drop right there. Okay, can everybody see that? Now, just like I did over here, I'm going to bring down a few lines from the top. Just a few, I'm not going to cover it, just bringing a few lines down from the top. Maybe even one right here in the center. That can be nice and messy. We're going to go over this anyways, but it's a good start. And if you've lost any of your little ridgeways, well, don't worry, we'll put those back in when we get the highlights in there. Okay, so now I am going to rinse off that brush, get a good rinse, and I'm going to make a really, really light orange. So I'm going to take a nice big scoop of yellow and do a tiny little dot of red in there. Just a tiny, teeny bit of red. Just to kind of get it a little bit of like a golden color. Think of more of like a golden yellow. So just adding that tiny bit of red gave it a golden, orangey, yellow sort of look to it. So you want more of a golden yellow.
What colors did you mix?
So it's mostly yellow with a teeny tiny bit of red. Gives you a golden yellow.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So it's almost orange, but not quite. Okay. So once you've got your golden yellow, I'm going to start filling in any areas that don't have the bluish purple in them. So just start bringing in some lines of it. Kind of go working in between the areas with the bluish purple. So kind of bringing it in anywhere you don't have that bluish purple yet. And don't worry too much about filling in this lower left and right side, because that's all going to be covered with trees. So you don't have to worry too much about getting it all the way down in that left-hand corner or right corner. And you can even take some of that golden yellow color and bring it up into your spaces, highlighted spaces at the top. This is what it's starting to look like. Okay, so I'm just going to demonstrate that again. So just going in, so I added some white to my golden color, added white to my gold, and then just went into these, just those top little highlighted areas. We're gonna like just enhance them a little bit more. And then just in a few little spots, let that golden, light golden color drop down into the cliff. Just a few little spots where the sun might be hitting. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. This is especially towards the top. And maybe there's a few more spots up here on the cliff that we can put a little highlight that drops down like that. Just getting a little highlight, a little detail with those highlights. If you do too much with your highlight, you could always just go back in with your dark and re-emphasize your cliff. If you lost too much with your highlights, you can always go back in and re-sketch in those cliffs. Okay, so now once you've got the little highlights at the top, just go ahead and rinse off that medium round brush again. Go back into that same highlight color, so that was white mixed in with our golden color, our golden yellow with white. You can get some more of that on your brush, medium-sized brush. That's the golden color with white. And let's bring it in a little bit more in the cliffs, just a few more brush strokes for highlights coming in. They're not going to go everywhere. They're just going to break up the dark here and there. Just a few lines of it. Kind of breaking up the dark here and there. So you want to try and get a nice balance between your dark and light. You don't want to lose all of your dark, bringing in these highlights. Get a nice balance. Go back. Okay, this is one of my favorite parts of the painting. I absolutely love putting in the mist from the waterfall here. So what I'm going to do is take that medium-sized brush and rinse it off really good. Medium brush, rinse it off good. And I'm going to take a little bit of white paint and water it down a bit. Add some water to it. So white paint with water, watery white. Watery white, medium brush. And then you come on over to that bottom part of your waterfall and just start swirling around this watery white. I'm kind of doing dots, like pushing it into the canvas. This is towards the bottom. And where you're really going to see it is especially in the darker areas. You'll see it really clearly. And it'll be a little higher in some areas than others. So just a bit of a misty feel to the bottom. There you go. Let me do a little bit of a close-up so everybody can see that. Just around the bottom of the waterfall. So watery white. Okay, this doesn't require much detail. Excellent. So has everybody get their little bit of mist at the bottom of the waterfall? All right. So now we're going to do something really fun. We're going to start bringing in some sort of foliage that just kind of is at the bottom. You're looking through some bushes and trees and maybe even a little path down here in order to see this waterfall. So we need to get those little bushes in there first. So I'm going to continue on with that same medium size brush and rinse it off a bit. Medium brush, give it a good rinse. And then I'm going to get a nice dark blue-green color. So I'm going to mix blue, a bunch of blue, and some green. Blue and green together to get a nice deep color. And I'm going to put it at the bottom. And let me just show you the basic shape it's going to be. It's going to come in like a little curve down here. See that? Like a smile at the bottom of your painting. Okay. So, nice little smile at the bottom of the painting. And then just fill in the bottom of that with that deep dark blue, blue-green. Just filling it in to start. Okay, we got a blue-green smile at the bottom of our canvas right now. But don't worry, it's not going to stay that way. Okay, so now we're going to start building it up with some lighter green. So let's just add a little bit of green and a little bit of yellow together. A little bit of green and a little bit of yellow. We'll do another layer up. So green and yellow. And come on to about halfway up that darker color and just start bringing in some nice messy brush strokes in here to bring it up just a little bit. Can everybody see the brush stroke I'm using here? I'm just kind of dashing it on there in a messy sort of way. But I'm also letting that mix in a little bit with that blue and green I have down there. So it's green and yellow together. And you want it to come up a little higher on the right side. Nice and messy. Make sure there isn't a clear line between your dark blue and your lighter green. Make sure those two blend together seamlessly. So see what I mean? There's a little bit darker underneath, but then it works its way up into a lighter green, but you don't see a line. It's not like dark blue, light green. See how they blend together? Sometimes you have to go over it a few times to get some blending in there.
What color did you use for the light green?
That was a combination of green and yellow. Green and yellow. And while everybody's working on that, I'm just going to mention a little something interesting about the composition in this painting, just so you can kind of have it in mind when you're something new to learn about painting. So one thing that I used, I used contrast here between the lightest area and the darkest area. And that's one tool for creating a really good composition or moving your eye through the picture. Another tool I used is having similar shapes throughout the painting. So if you notice, these trees here, or these bushes, have a certain sort of kind of a lumpy sort of shape going on, roundish. And then you see that same shape happening here in the mist and the waterfall. Those kind of lumpy, same sort of brush strokes, same sort of shapes happening. And then you also see a similarity to it in the clouds. That's part of pulling your eye through a painting. You use similar shapes throughout the painting, and that's part of creating a really good composition. Just a little side thing to think about while you're working. So the time has come to start bringing these tree branches into the very front of the painting. So this is another thing that we're using in our painting composition. We are creating something called perspective. So perspective is when something looks a little closer to you and something looks a little further away. So by putting these tree branches right in front, we are putting some distance between us and what's happening in the waterfall, and helps us to see that it's far off in the distance. So it's a little tool we're going to use for creating perspective. Okay, so let me show you how we're going to get those in there. I'm going to use my small brush, and I'm going to go with, I'm going to kind of mix a couple of different colors together here. And I'll use black and red. Maybe a tiny bit of yellow too. So that's black, red, and maybe just a little bit of yellow. Yeah, to make it our nice little tree branch color. Black, red, and yellow. Okay, now comes the tough part, is deciding where to put our tree branches. Now I put them all around the painting, just very nicely framing it. But the important thing is to make them thin so that they don't take away from the rest of the painting, they add to it. Okay, so let's start down in this lower right corner. Let's get a branch that kind of comes from the bottom and comes on out like that. Oops. You might have to add a little bit of water to your mixture to get it to work good for you. There we go. And it's just coming a little ways out into the waterfall. And I'm going to let that turn into the letter Y. Make it a little bit thicker at the bottom. Okay, so can everybody see that? A little letter Y, a wobbly Y. It's not a perfectly straight Y. And with each branch of those Ys, we get to make another Y out of them, another wobbly little Y. Did I just say wobbly little Y? I think I did. Like that. And if you're feeling adventurous, you could even do one more. It's kind of up to you. I like to make them a little wobbly. They're not perfectly straight and they feel a little more realistic when they're not perfectly straight. I mean, how often do you see trees out in the forest that have perfectly straight branches? Not very often. Okay. Pretty easy, right? Little tree branches, and trees in themselves are just a series of Ys. You just keep on layering Y upon Y upon Y. And then you'll come out with some beautiful branches. And see how it's nice and thin on the ends, but it gets a little thicker at the bottom. That's our first one. Good job, everybody. Now we're going to get another one, maybe a little higher up over here, coming from the right side. Okay. Starts like that, turns into a Y. And then those Ys just keep on growing. Okay. Okay, let's get another branch. Maybe this one's coming from the top, kind of the top right corner. Right in the corner, it's just kind of making its way down like this. These branches can also be a great way to hide any boo-boos you had in the cliff. There's any areas that you're not crazy about. Oops, a branch right there. The reverse is true too. If you like really love an area, don't put a branch on top of it. Let's try to get some interesting shapes going on in here. They don't have to be too big. Well, let's get one maybe coming from over here on the left side. Of course, I'm just doing an example of one way you can do it, but there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do it. So if something else feels right to you, you go ahead and do that. So as you can see, I'm just kind of trying to have something touching each corner of the painting, or each edge has a tree branch at least touching it, maybe even originating from there. And maybe one more in this lower left corner. Okay, so these are my fun little branches. Putting the waterfall into perspective.
I'm going to leave, but I'm going to connect on my iPad, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
I'll let you back in. Let's do it. Let's bring the leaves onto the branches. I'm going to use my medium-sized brush for this and give it a good rinse. The medium-sized brush, the round one. And for the leaves, I'm going to do a combination of green and yellow. Green and yellow. Green and yellow. once you have green and yellow mixed together, we're coming on to each of those little Y areas and just dotting some little dots. I'm using a very light pressure here, kind of all around each of those Ys. Each of those Ys that you see that you created, give yourself a little kind of round, but not perfectly round, little hat of green on there. Does that make sense? Like a little covering of green dots on each of those Ys. I'm going to go through each of them and make a little leaf hat for each of those Ys. You don't have to make it very big. This can be just a little hint. You know what, too, I want to say before even going too far with this, after you do the green, go ahead and while it's still wet, put a couple of dots of white on the tips of it to just kind of make it a little bit brighter. So add just a little tiny bit of a lighter color. It could be white, maybe some white and yellow, just to make them stand out a little bit more than what's all around them. let me just show you a little bit closer. So it's a combination of your green and yellow, and then you add a little bit of white while it's still wet, and you get a nice little highlight in there. And it really makes it stand out against everything else, doesn't it? Looks like a beautiful spring day at Bridal Falls.